Thank you all so much for being here tonight. Appreciate just your presence. Thank you for coming week after week and day after day. You guys make this practice so much easier for me just by showing up as you do each time. And so if you're wondering, like, does my practice affect others? Does it matter? It sure does to me, and I'm betting a lot of you feel pretty similarly. So thank you. Thanks for being here. Bringing your limitless true self here when you could be in so many places. One of the things I wanted to just acknowledge to start with is that, we have so many choices. You could be with your family, you could be working, you could be playing, you could be doing some sort of recreation or myriad other things. And yet each one of you is making this a central aspect of your life every day, and I see that, and you all see that, and I think that means actually a lot. And I just wanted to acknowledge that and then use that, or use this koan as kind of a starting point for a conversation. So, case 16 of the Mumonkan. Unmon said, "Look, this world is vast and wide. Why do you put on your priest's robe at the sound of the bell?" So that's, first off, just looking at this vast, wide world that we are, fundamentally that we are, and that we are choosing to come here, to practice together, to consistently bring ourselves into this practice, the Zendo, and the Willow Farm, and all the different ways online that we all create this incredible form together so that we can wake up and be free inside of this beautiful tradition that we've all gotten to receive from the masters throughout the ages. Truly incredible people, and their compassion and wisdom is being handed to us. And so how are we going to take it up? And so why do you put on your priest's robe at the sound of the bell? Well, for me, you can look at this from the side, for me at least, I'm looking at this from one side being at the beginning, or at some point we need to be asking why, right? Sometimes it's important to kind of get a sense of like, so why am I doing this? And I don't think I can tell you what that is for me, but I can tell you a little bit about my history. So, I come from a family where I grew up feeling pretty estranged and pretty sad. There was a lot of suffering. My sisters suffered, my father and mother, maybe my father more suffered, at least more visibly. And my sisters and I have even, one of my sisters, said to me at one point, like, only us who lived it can really know what it was like. It was a special kind of suffering. It wasn't anything particular that you can point to as like, that event was bad. Maybe there's some of that, but there's more just there was this pervasive sense of just not really a lot of attunement and love, and not really a lot of connection, not really a lot of being seen in our wholeness or in our beingness. So I could feel from a young age that I wanted to find a way to be happy. I wanted to understand my suffering. So I was in therapy actually at a really young age. But I remember asking my mother at one point, how can I be happy? And her answer was roughly finances, money, and getting material things in order so that you don't have to worry. I wasn't satisfied with that. I felt very much that there was something deeper And I did not know what it was for a very long time, or I still don't know what it is, but there was no sense of it. And finally, when I was in my 20s, started to take LSD and had a pretty intense experience with LSD, which really was an initial awakening. I had no reference points for it, and yet it was compelling, and I started meditating from that day on. And I was determined. I felt like it was life or death. So I found a few different teachers at first, like Reggie Ray and Cliff Clusin, who lives in Longmont, or at least did. I think he still does. And then finally met Shishin and Sensei on the same night. I went to the Lincoln building over at Naropa, and when I got there, Sensei was the first person to greet me, and I instantly felt his warmth and his compassion. I was like, oh, that's nice. But I was driven to meet this Roshi person, so I kind of acknowledged him and went past and, met Shishin that day, and then decided to start practicing a lot and went to everything. And that became really kind of one of the central pieces of practice for me, was just to show up, was to go to everything, go to every Tuesday night we would do up at the place above Protos Pizza, and all of the sessions that I could possibly go to. And I just felt that it was essential to show up, and so I'm feeling my appreciation for all of you for showing up. And when Unmon says, why do you put on your priest's robe at the sound of the bell? Part of it for me at the beginning, at least, and still is just like, just do it. We don't have to think about it. We don't have to understand why so much. I think that's largely an important point here, is this why question is what gets us caught, it's what gets us confused, it's what takes us away from our life. And we don't need to be asking why once we've found something that's resonating with us and that we can feel the truth of this practice. Then let's throw ourselves completely in without a hesitation, without a single thought. I'll share a little bit more about Unmon so we can get a sense of who this guy is. Oh, I wrote it down earlier, but I lost it. He was in somewhere around 870 CE, and he was the abbot of a monastery of like 790 monks. So interesting, right? He's asking, why are you doing this? Why are you coming here being a monk? Why are you putting on your priest's robe and doing all these bells and bows and things? And yet he's, running a monastery. On the day when Unmon first entered the hall as abbot, the governor of Guangzhou attended in person and said to the master, "Your disciple asks for your valued teaching." Unmon said, "There's nothing special to say. It is better if I don't speak and thereby deceive you all. I'm sorry that I've already played the part of a wily old fox for all of you. If a man of clear vision were to suddenly see me now, I'd be the object of laughter. But if I can avoid it, then I'll just ask you all from the beginning, what's the big deal? What are you lacking? I don't have anything to say. There's nothing to be seen. You have to break through to this on your own. And don't ask silly questions. In my mind, there's just a dark fog. Tomorrow morning and the day after, there are a lot of affairs going on here. If your disposition is to tarry here and not return to your usual lives, to look here and there at the gates and gardens built by the ancients, what point is there in all that? You want to understand? That's just due to your own quagmire of delusion accumulated for endless eons. You hear someone expound on something, and it puts a doubt in your mind. So you ask about Buddha, and so you ask about the ancestors, looking high and low, searching for a solution, getting caught up in things. This scheming mind is wide of the mark. It's always caught up in words and phrases. Isn't what you require the non-intentioned mind? Don't be mistaken about this. There's nothing more to say. Take care. I found that to be really remarkable. especially because I'm coming here starting to do some talk, and this guy's like, I don't have anything to say. So I sure hope I don't have too much to say. One more interchange between Unmon and a monk. A monk asked, how should one act during every hour of the day such that ancestors are not betrayed? Unmon said, give up your effort. The monk said, how should I give up my effort? Unmon said, give up the words you just uttered. So, yeah, I want to move on to the commentary. So Mumon's commentary of this koan is, now, in studying Zen and disciplining oneself, one must strictly avoid following sounds and clinging to forms. Even though one may be enlightened by hearing a sound, or have one's mind clarified by seeing a form, this is just a matter of course. It is nothing to talk about either, if a Zen man is able to master sounds and control forms, and thus can clearly see the reality of everything, and is wonderfully free in everything he does. Though it may be so, you tell me, does the sound come to your ear, or does your ear go to the sound? Even if you're able to transcend both sound and silence, how do you speak of that fact? If you listen with your ear, you cannot truly get it. When you hear with your eye, then you can really get it. So he says, we must really be strictly careful about avoiding following sounds and clinging to forms. And we have all of these forms in our practice. We have our robes, our Rakusus, we have our Zafus, we have our bows, we have our bells. And while those, and we need to throw ourselves completely into those forms in order to not experience a separation, right? So that there's not form over there and person over here, self over here. How can we really not follow sounds? There's a sound and then there's me. I follow the sound by saying I'm the one who experienced it? Just let the sound fully be the sound. Let the form fully be the form. When we're in our what is it called when we do all the bows and chings? Chanting? Service. When we're in our service, can we really truly lose ourselves in the service so that there's no clinging to forms and clinging to sounds, and yet we're not we're not dismissing them or anything like that either. They're totally there, they're totally what they are, and they're totally inseparable from our true nature. And then he goes on to say, even though one may be enlightened by hearing a sound, right, not feeling separate, even though one may have one's mind clarified by seeing a form, this is just a matter of course. That is a hard thing to accept, right? At least for me, it feels wonderful, magical to experience this freedom and openness of our true self that is unlimited, this vast wide world that opens up when we throw ourselves completely into it. And yet, it's nothing to talk about, because we can't get stuck there, we can't hold on to that. That's not what this is about. We have to move on. The next thing is coming. We can't be excited about that stuff, or at least we can practice letting it go and continue on our way and see if we can see it just as, lightly as a leaf passing in the wind. Why does it have to be different to us? That's very, very hard for me, but that seems to be what they're implying here, is, at least that's what I'm hearing, is that we can really let go of the specialness, because it's our home, it's our true self, it's what is, so it's not actually anything particularly special. And so then he goes on to say, though it may be so, you tell me, does sound come to your ear, or does your ear go to the sound? So we have these, objects of awareness, and then the sense perceptions that hear the awareness, and the, there's three. There's the hearing faculty, the consciousness faculty, and the object of awareness. But really it comes down to If you listen with your eye, then you can really get it. Lastly, there's the poem of this, which is, if you understand it, all things are one. If you do not, they are different and separate. If you do not understand it, all things are one. If you do, they are different and separate. So the first lines feel pretty easier to, more intuitive to me. Is if I do understand it, then I will experience this oneness. If I don't understand it, I'll be separate. I'll feel isolated. I'll experience life at a distance. But then the second lines, if you do not understand it, all things are one, to me says, even if we don't understand it, it's still the basic truth, still the underlying reality of our experience, whether we recognize it or not. And if you do understand it, they are different and separate. How does that make sense? For me, it's like, well, at the gas station, I fill up my gas tank. At the grocery store, I buy fruits and vegetables and food. You know, those places are not, they're different. They have their own unique quality, but they're not separate from what is either. And so if we're not attached to different and separate things, being, grabbing onto them, then they also don't create any problems for us. We're not trapped in things. So we can still be completely interacting with the world as it is and not have a self in that, not have a suffering relationship with that. So these forms that we practice together are here to serve our practice, not the other way around. We are not trying to get the forms to be good and right and perfect, because then we would be kind of losing ourselves to these forms, at least I think. And so I just encourage us all to throw ourselves 100% wholeheartedly into all the bells and all the bows. Each time is a chance to instantly, when you hear the sound of the bell, illuminate the mind. And when you hear the Makugyo, to feel deeply. So, I think that's all I wanted to. The one more thing is just to also say, for me, this bell also feels like it's ringing right now in terms of our country right now, in terms of our political experience, at least right now. This bell is ringing. How are we going to respond to that? That just also came up for me around this. Is like, there's a bell ringing. When a bell rings, how do you respond? When the telephone rings, are you awake to listen to that phone call? If the world is calling us and saying, like, emergency, emergency, how do we meet that emergency? So, thank you all very much for listening. Thank you all for being here.